Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. When my wife and I bought our house on Elm Street last year, we were so excited to join what seemed like a friendly community. Most of the neighbors were young couples and families like us, with kids playing together in the street and backyard barbecues every weekend. But everything changed when a group of retirees moved into some vacant houses at the end of the block. At first, they seemed nice enough, always waving and saying hello. Little did we know they had sinister plans. After living here for just 2 months, they formed a homeowners association and appointed themselves to the board. The next thing we knew, they were going door to door pressuring people to join the homeowner association and pay dues. They claimed it was to pay for neighborhood improvements, but it soon became clear they were just out to control everyone. Those of us who refused to join started getting weird notices left on our doorsteps about minor things, like our grass being half an inch too long. Then the letters became demands to change things or be fined. They nitpicked everything you could imagine: holiday decorations, garden gnomes, kids' toys in the yard. It was ridiculous. At first, we all thought it was a joke and ignored them. But the homeowner association board was dead serious. They filed complaints with the city about all these trivial violations, trying to get our homes condemned over things like faded paint. It was totally insane. When we realized they were serious, a bunch of us came together to tell them we wanted no part of their homeowner association tyranny. Their response was to hold a special vote to expand homeowner association boundaries to cover the entire block, whether we joined or not. They said it was to maintain neighborhood standards. Yeah, right. Things really escalated when they put liens on some neighbors' houses for not paying fines or dues. Then came the eviction notices. The homeowner association was trying to kick people out of homes they owned, all for minor junk like having your trash can visible or parking a work truck in your own driveway. By this point, we'd had enough of being harassed. We joined together and filed a lawsuit, claiming the homeowner association overstepped their authority. We demanded they cease the unfair targeting of non-members. The homeowner association president had the audacity to accuse us of being against community standards. According to him, the homeowner association was just trying to prevent the neighborhood from becoming run down. What a joke! We showed the judge photos of how pristine our homes were before the homeowner association targeted us. When we presented all the bogus fines and hearings the homeowner association held without us present, the judge finally saw through their scheme. He not only dissolved their expanded boundaries, but completely disbanded the homeowner association for abuse of power. Those old cronies on the board were steaming mad about losing their control. As we celebrated with a big block party, they sat glaring from their porches. Too bad for them. Our neighborhood is peaceful again without their drama. We learned our lesson, though. Before buying a home, make sure to ask if there's an homeowner association. And if there is, run. Don't risk your dream home becoming a nightmare like ours almost did. We're just grateful we could band together and stand up to those tyrants trying to bully us out of our homes. In the end, we realized the only thing we have in common is looking out for each other. We don't need a controlling homeowner association for that. As long as we stick together, no one can seize power over our happy little community again. The next one is a pro-revenge story. My father is the Canadian Satan. Growing up with him was less than fun, and I can assure you, based on witnessing it, he was a less than fun husband. I'd go on about what a piece of crap my father is, but instead I'll quote a judge. "You're the most despicable human I've ever had in my courtroom." And that's coming from a family court judge. I read this winning endorsement of my dad's personality in the court documents I acquired related to his divorce with my mom. The same place I discovered the duckery he had engaged in to steal from my mom. It's also where I found the information I needed to get one over on him so severely he's going to disinherit me. A frame of reference about my father is that he's a pathological narcissist and behaves exactly how those people are compelled to act. They aren't generous people, and punching them in the wallet is like a slap shot to the taint from Gretzky. He's kind of like Donkey from Shrek, but also Joseph Stalin, a monstrous jackass. Chapter 1. Hosea 3:8. Those that sow the wind shall reap a whirlwind. Our actions always have consequences, and my padre has plenty to answer for. My attempts to hold him to account didn't jump to immediate jihad. They started with diplomacy and a therapist. About 10 months ago, when our tale begins, I was going through some stuff. Stuff being a whole lot of PTSD related to both my dad's abuse and my job as a paramedic. He did a ton that affected me deeply, things that I needed to move past. along with all that other razzmatazz from 15 years of EMS. So, trying to move past and work through everything, I quit drinking, started turning my untreated PTSD into treated PTSD, and thought having my dad involved might help me in our relationship. Well, I seriously ducking misjudged that one, so you'll probably be unsurprised to hear that conversation went swimmingly. I'll spare you the lurid detail, but when I broached the subject with him, our back and forth degenerated into visceral hate, with him screaming at me that I'm a failed paramedic, liar, and piece of crap alcoholic. While I have a certain pride about my job, I have more pride in my 14 months of sobriety, so hearing this from my old man might have caused me to behave a bit psychotically. I got right pissed off at him and decided to dig up every bit of dirt I could, see what kind of man he actually is and has been. When it was convenient, I hopped in the mystery machine before taking a trip to the courthouse to unleash my inner gumshoe. Everything is public record, so I bulk bought copies before retiring to my easy chair to read, plot, and pet my white long-haired cat. For good measure, I obtained a file of divorce documents from my mother. Soon enough, I hit upon a line of inquiry worth following up on. It seems that during the final settlement of my parents' divorce, 2002, my mother was awarded 1/3 of my father's employment pension. She was a stay-at-home mother and could not earn one herself, so it was given to her by a judge. Mighty ducking strange, because my father, as he brags, took a nearly full pension and retired a bit early. No way that asshat was living the last 10 years after retiring early on a 2-3 pension. He isn't constantly idioting about it. So I asked my mother if she was collecting a pension from his job, or had cashed out the value, 100K plus at the time, 20 years ago, no to both questions. Well, that's interesting. I wonder if that's collectible, and what 20 years of compound interest from a pension fund makes it worth. Well, I did eventually find out, along with the fact that my dear old dad had been collecting my mother's portion for 10 years, in hilariously open violation of a legal order from a judge. Why didn't my mother pursue this sooner? A combination of being unable to afford a lawyer, being his victim for 20 years, and pessimism after so much of his continued dodging obligation to the order, she just quit. There is effectively no statute of limitations he could hide behind because of the wording of the settlement. Insofar as I could tell, I had him dead to rights, and my mother would be collecting. It would be a slam dunk. I just needed to hire a lawyer to help me, so I set out to find the most unbalanced, bloodthirsty psychotic who passed the bar exam. Chapter 2. Et tu, pension lady? As it says in the good book, screw unto others as they would screw unto you. So that's what I set out to do. The misanthropic sociopath I hired for legal counsel suggested we send a demand letter to the pension office to try to remedy it before filing what would undoubtedly be an easy win for him. I agreed in spirit and instead phoned up the pension office and got put through to the woman managing my father's file. Well, she was a delight, and it was a trivial matter for me to get her to loathe my dad. We talked for 45 minutes, and I swear if you'd given me another hour, I could have convinced her to suicide bomb his house. In all our conversations about life, families, and relationships, we got down to some things of note. Since I could show her correspondence her office had sent to my father, CC'd my mom on, some years ago and ongoing for 5 consecutive years, trying to resolve this matter which he had ignored. She was more than willing to start the process on remedy immediately. Full cooperation from this lady and her office was a matter of merely providing documentation, and with my lawyer on retainer, this office was beyond asking my father to comply. They complied for him. About 2 months since I last spoke to my father, and he now had no idea his pension was about to take a serious hit. Below, I'm going to break down how big a turd I put into his bowl of ice cream. My mother's portion was made whole and adjusted to reflect that her portion was brought to maturity and beyond, so his early retirement doesn't affect her fund. So he loses 10 years of valuation to her. He also retired 3 years early, which knocks him down now to 17 years of pension valuation, not 27. If you'd forgotten, my dad had been collecting my mom's money and was overpaid by 30K per year for the last 10 years. Like I said, Mom was made whole, so the pension company is going to claw back that overpayment from the base valuation of his current pension fund. I'm not exactly sure what that does to the number, but it effectively nerfs my old man's private retirement fund. He's got government old age pension that he took early too. Whoops. My dad did some awful crap to me, but I only had to suffer 17 years of him. My mom still has the high score at 20. As much as I did this for spite and malicious glee, I did do it to give my mom a chance at a proper retirement. Chapter 3. Glitter Bombs of Justice. My mother started collecting her pension about 3 months after I contacted the pension office. And to celebrate, she bought tickets to New Zealand for the family for Christmas, so we can see our relatives. I was able to get most of my retainer from the lawyer back, and to celebrate, I went online to order a glitter bomb. I was able to ship it to my old man anonymously from another country. God bless the USA. I heard through my sister he opened it up in his stupid red Miata. Ha ha ha, he'll never get rid of it. The next one is a petty revenge story. There's a regular at the gym I go to. I find him annoying as hell, so let's call him, I don't know, AH. He's the kind of guy who seemingly gives zero craps about anyone else. He cares only about getting to where he's going, or doing what he's set out to do as quickly as possible with no respect for others. He's the kind of guy who will, as you're having a 30-second rest between sets, walk up to you and ask if he can just use that machine quickly, and then proceed to not give it back until he's done. Because he's in a hurry, often bringing along his kids as well, so you will have to wait for not just him but them too. Because obviously his time is important, so oops, if he just took over that machine you were using, you weren't using it this exact second, so shrug, we happen to work at the same place and bike the same way there, so I see him occasionally. Same thing, zigzags past everyone at twice their speed without a single care, except for getting where he's going as fast as possible. I was once about to have a crash because he flew past me on the inside of a corner with no warning. He races into the street instead of using the newly built bike lane literally right next to it because technically it's a few seconds quicker for him and screw the cars and buses, I guess. Anyways, baseline set. So to this recent event, I go to the gym. Outside of staffed hours, you enter through a special passageway using your membership card. This is also where you exit, and it only allows one person through at a time. As I got there this time, there was a long line of people in the process of exiting the gym. As it only takes one person at a time, this takes a few minutes, and there was a queue building up of people waiting to enter. There were already people there as I came who had been waiting a little while, and we kept waiting a few more minutes. Enter AH. By pure coincidence, he times it so perfectly that he comes in right as the last person exits. He proceeds to, without a single glance at the rest of the lobby, walk past every single one of us waiting with the sort of complete confidence that left me literally speechless, so that he can enter first without waiting at all. Like, of course, he didn't even bother looking because his time is important. He ain't gonna stand in line like a normal person. My mind could hardly process that he just did this without any care in the world and without even noticing. I got a glimpse of eye contact with him as he did this, and I think he could tell my eyes were shooting absolute daggers. My blood is boiling just from the principle of it. I go in, do a short stint on the treadmill, still absolutely fuming 20 minutes later. Walk over to use a barbell, sit down at it, and take a short break before I start my set. QAH. Are you using this? Yes. No way I'm letting this go to him. Can we alternate? I'm gonna use this. There are more barbells like this. I'm petty, and I know it. I normally don't have a problem sharing stuff with people or alternating, but I do with him now. Someone has taken them somewhere? My mouth doesn't say it out loud, but my eyes tell him in no uncertain terms that IDGAF GTFO. He clearly gets the message as he goes, whatever, I'll use something else. As he leaves, I say somewhat quietly, yes, you will. An extremely small victory, but still made me feel at least a little revenge. Also, I've probably gotten him off my back for the future, so yay. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I had a hand in this malicious compliance, and it was rather nice. First, a little information. Back when I was working as a classroom technician for my local community college after I graduated, the college had a need for a technical scribe for a blind student. They needed someone who could not only provide direction of what the computer was showing on the screen, that the Dragon software that audibly gave cues on what you were doing, was unable to, but also had the technical skills to also know how to work the software that was being used. I fit in perfectly, and so was hired on to do the technical interpreting for the student for the quarter. The professor assigned for the students to create a user interface that did some specific things. Well, the paper that he gave out had a general idea of what the students were to create. To help, but not overly help, I designed the general GUI, graphical user interface, and then let the student do the brunt of the work that Dragon functioned for, and I filled in the gaps by verbally cueing him on where he was, and what to do next because Dragon wasn't giving any cues. Student then turned in the assignment. Professor asks us to come to his office the next day and says that he knows I did the GUI part, and it was the student's responsibility to do their own interpretation of what he handed out. I was about to explain, but the student grabbed my arm, politely apologized, and said he will do as asked. We leave his office, and I ask what's up. He replied, "Can you edit the settings on those laser printers in the computer lab to print a page of nothing but black?" I said, "Sure." So we do so, and after that black page was printed out, we went back to the professor's office. He said, "Well, that was quick." The student handed over the paper, and the professor was very confused. Student then spoke up. "You said for me to design a GUI based off of what you printed. This is what I saw, so I'm giving you my interpretation of the image that you printed for the class." At that moment, the professor had a light bulb go off in his head, realizing that he required a blind student to give their interpretation of an image he printed for the class. He apologized, said the previous work will be counted, and for future assignments to proceed as we had been. He then said to the student, "Well played." The next one is an entitled People Story. This story, dear reader, has no good guy. Actually, this situation isn't black and white. However, one person in this story is arguably worse than the rest of us. I, 26F, have two sisters, 25F and 24F. The youngest one, let's call her Jane, has always been the most spoiled among the three of us. At the age of 21, I moved out of my parents' house to join the military, and my other sister, let's call her Claire, moved out at 23 when she was about a year into her nursing career. Despite having a college degree in business administration, Jane still refuses to get a full-time job or have any responsibility. Her life revolves around clubbing, partying, and going to the gym. To her credit, she did have a part-time job at our local coffee shop as a barista, so she could fund her lifestyle, but other than that, she doesn't pay bills. My parents, Mom, 52F, Dad, 57M, pay for everything from her car to her cell phone bill, and even her tollway when she drives around. Basically, everything a normal functioning adult would pay for themselves is footed by my parents because she doesn't have a career yet. I get it. I have a daughter myself, and I would do anything to make sure that she's taken care of, even as an adult, but there's a difference between financial support and straight-up coddling. I've brought it up to my parents, specifically my mom, multiple times as to why she doesn't pay for her car, or at least her insurance, but she basically told me that she shouldn't suffer because of what our dad did. For some backstory, my sister was driving a used Honda around 2017 to 2019. The car itself was fairly new when they bought it, so my parents had it financed, and they gave it to my sister so she could get herself to school. Suddenly, and without warning, my dad took my sister's car, traded it for a brand new 2020 Honda, even though it wasn't paid off. Now my parents, specifically my mom as she is the breadwinner, are stuck paying for a brand new car and a car she no longer owns. Because of my dad's utter stupidity, my mom tried to make it up to Jane by buying her a Hyundai of the same year as her Honda. So not only was my mom paying for my dad's new Honda, my sister's old Honda to which the balance was put on top of the new Honda, but the Hyundai as well. With that being said, my mom feels that she shouldn't make Jane pay for the car because of my dad. Because everything was literally handed to Jane on a silver platter, this has made her extremely entitled to the point that my parents are scared of her. For example, one time Jane had bought Kane's chicken the night before and left her leftovers on the table. My mom saw it and ate it. I had just got discharged from the military, so I was staying at my parents' for a while until I saved enough to move out. So I saw my sister's reaction to my mom eating her leftovers. I had just got home from the store with my husband, 31M, and my daughter, 1F. As soon as we got home, Jane angrily asks me if I had eaten her leftovers. I told her I was just out with my family, and we got lunch on our way back, so I couldn't have eaten it. Then she called both my parents, who were at church, and she then found out that my mom had eaten her leftovers. After that revelation, she started to yell and swear at them over the phone. Even after she hung up the phone, she kept swearing and yelling and slamming doors and cabinets. My poor daughter saw all of this and was quite frankly scared of her auntie at that moment. The following week, I was at work when I got an angry phone call from Jane asking if I had been in her bedroom. I told her no because I was rushing to work. She hung up, and I thought that was the end of it. After I got off work, my sister Claire called me and told me what happened. Jane called Claire complaining about how someone left her room open and one of the dogs had pooped in her room. This incident infuriated Jane to the extent that she stormed into our mom's room, where our mom was working from home and engaged in a professional phone call with a client. Jane's intrusion disrupted the professional setting, as she loudly and vehemently berated our mom without any consideration for the ongoing business call. My dad apparently came into the room hearing all the yelling. Fed up with my sister's attitude, he angrily tells my sister that if she doesn't like it here, then she can move out, which pissed off Jane, and then she left the house. When I got home that night, I asked my mom why she continues to let Jane step all over her, even going as far as disrespecting her in her place of work. She says she's her mother and she's supposed to help her children the best she can. But I keep telling her that Jane needs adult responsibilities, otherwise she won't appreciate the things she has. The next one is an entitled parent story. I, a 13-year-old girl, was just sitting at my desk writing my New Year's resolutions, as one does, when suddenly my father came into my room. He asked if I wanted to stay with my mom full-time because I didn't seem happy with him. Indeed, I was not happy there, as I had started to see just how bad and pathetic of a person he is, and I wasn't talking to him at all. I told him that no, I would just stay with him on and off, even though I did want to stay just with my mom. But alas, I am a people pleaser. He said, No, you can talk to me. So what did I say? I said that I would think about it because that's what you do when you want someone to leave you alone. He left my room, and 5 minutes later he came back and said that he emailed my mom and that I should pack my things and my mom would pick me up tomorrow. I was thinking, what is all of this? And said, no, I'll just wait until the end of the time I was supposed to stay, but he was very adamant that I leave the next day. I could almost see him say, I don't want to see your face right now, which I don't understand because he did all of this on his own. But anyway, I started crying, and he kept on saying, why are you crying? This is what you wanted, but not in a comforting way, more in a, this is all your fault way. So I texted my brother and asked him to tell my mom. While I was doing that, I could hear him on the phone with someone saying that I wanted to leave, and so he's letting me go, which really annoyed me. But what could I really do? I started packing, and he came back into my room with my mom on the phone, saying she wanted to talk to me. She was extremely confused, as she should be. I mean, her kid was on the phone crying her eyes out, saying that she didn't want to leave. But she got an email saying that I wanted to go, and her cheating ex saying that she is overreacting. He just hung up on her, went outside, and started a fight with my uncle, saying that he needs to leave and he's a leech. He came storming back into the house and started yelling at me, saying, oh, I did everything for you. Everything you have is because of me. Which is the bare minimum, and he starts breaking down, saying that I did this. Fast forward to today, he told my mom that she needed to bring me back by Monday or she would regret it. Now he's trying to act all friendly with me on WhatsApp and sending me money, but I'm just ignoring it. So yeah, how was everyone's New Year? I'm sure better than mine. Oh yes, this is one of the texts he sent. Hello, Mama, how are you doing? I've been asking your mom to bring you back home, but she has refused so far. She didn't refuse, I did, but go on. What happened on December 31st was literally a misunderstanding that has been blown out of proportion. The reason I wanted you to go to your mom was for her to help you deal with whatever emotional issues you might be experiencing. Totally a misunderstanding. I was hoping once you have confided in her, you can now return, but your mom has blown this out of proportion. Yeah, right, this is all my mom's fault. She literally went to the police yesterday to have me arrested, but no worries. They said I didn't do anything. I kind of wanted him to get arrested so he could see that there are consequences to his actions. You are due to start the new activities we talked about, and also you need to be home. The audacity. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.